Hi everyone, Air here, and today I'm going to do an episode that so many women truly need, myself included, circa 5 years ago. So I'm going to compose everything that I've learned in the last 5 years through psychotherapy, through my clients, through holistic practices, spiritual insights, everything from shamanic journeys to therapeutic ways. Now, here's the thing. This is a very special episode because I'm actually combining two of my podcasts together for this episode. And that's because it's super important for both. The Who Am I podcast is really about understanding your identity and self-awareness and being able to explore your spirituality. We have many guests because of that are experts in their field, and it has, I believe, over 150 episodes at this point. So the Who Am I podcast is my eldest of all of my babies, and definitely one that you can see my personal growth throughout the entire journey. Versus the Black Cat Energy podcast, as my whole demeanor changes, is all about harnessing that dark feminine energy to be able to attract what you deserve, your dreams, and your goals. It's about exploring that kind of sensuality, that confidence, that self-concept that is just alluring to no matter what circumstance you're in or whatever guy you're trying to attract. So it's way more of a woman's podcast in that way versus Who Am I is an everyone type of podcast. But this particular conversation about self-validation, by all means, it needs to be heard in both places. Self-validation is one of those concepts where people struggle, including me as a recovering people pleaser. It is something that if you have a childhood where you always felt like you needed to be perfect or you felt overshadowed or you just weren't hitting the mark, it really hits you. And then if you've been through any type of horrible relationships where they were toxic or abusive or just really not healthy for you overall, again, your validation has been kind of misconstrued or it's even been annihilated at times. So I'll do a couple of story times in this show, but I also want to go through how you can actually develop your self-validation, how you can start showing up for yourself, be your best self, and then obviously attract whatever goal or insight or person that you're trying to attract. Okay. So as you guys know, I've had a fair share of ringer stories throughout my 20s. Entering into my 30s, I definitely feel way more self-validation than I did in the past. I'm somebody that if you would have asked me 6 or 7 years ago, or even 5 years ago, I was the person that never felt confident in my decisions. I was always second guessing if I was on the right track, and then I would have to have advice through 3 different people before I was like, I don't even know if I want to take anyone's advice. And I'd go in this kind of rabbit hole, especially when it came to relationships or anything to do with my career. I always felt like I was doing something wrong or making the wrong decisions. In my 20s, I actually owned several apothecary stores, which, if you don't know what apothecary is, think of like an herb shop or a place where you go get holistic medicines. And that store and the stores grew rapidly throughout my 20s. I felt like from 21 to 27 that this thing had become way bigger than me. I had about 60 employees at one time. I was making decisions that I didn't feel capable for, and I felt like everything was always wrong. I felt like I was always working 24/7. I was never taking any time off. And I also felt like a lot of my employees didn't actually respect me or didn't actually take me seriously. Now, that could have been for the fact that I was young. It could have been for so many different reasons, but I always felt like I was trying to adhere to them versus them working for the business and me giving them a paycheck and it being that type of equal exchange. It showed up in my love life as well. I always felt like, okay, I was dating this guy for about 4 years during my 20s. Nothing ever really felt right. Like, he felt like more like best friend energy. He didn't do anything wrong, but definitely didn't feel like the love of my life. And then because of that reason, I felt like I was always asking my family and my friends, I was like, what is love supposed to be like? Am I even like deserving of love? Granted, everything from my past. Is this as good as it gets? Just so many of those questions that come up when you're trying to validate yourself or a situation that's in your life. So, the first thing that I really advise when it comes to flipping the script and starting to do more self validation is to have more self awareness. The biggest thing for me, especially throughout my 20s, was the fact that I didn't know who I was, which is why the Who Am I podcast became so significant in my life and why I actually named the Who Am I podcast. For those of you all that have been following the show for about 3 years, then you'll know I didn't actually name the show for the first year and a half. I didn't have a name, and that was kind of the funny thing about it. I would just label it under my name, but I kept saying, I was like, eventually I'll name this thing. Like, eventually this will discover what it's supposed to be. And the Who Am I podcast became that because it was about learning my identity, self awareness, a place in humanity, a place in this world, a purpose. And I was able to do that with so many important people, so many lovely guests, and then also life experiences, like my personal life experiences. So that came to be through sitting down and really investigating and asking myself the hard questions of who am I? Like, what do I feel? What do I think? I did so much journaling. I wrote several books during my 20s. I have 7 total now, but in my 20s I had 5 books. And most of that was really uncovering some of the stories that had happened in my life. As a human trafficking survivor in my early 20s even, I have those books, and that really took a hard look at my identity. Who am I? Like, when you're told who you're supposed to be for so long or what your worth is for so long, how do you start unraveling those threads and discovering which ones actually belong to you and not someone else or someone else trying to impose on you? So a lot of self-awareness came through that. When I decided to go to graduate school for psychotherapy, to become a counselor, to become a therapist, that was also a lot of self-awareness and self-discovery, sitting down in my own sessions and working with professionals to ask the hard questions, to look at new perspectives, to kind of look at my childhood, my adolescence, and my 20s and be like, hey, which part of these do I want to let go of and surrender, and which ones do I want to be part of my identity moving forward? Where do I want to go? And that sounds like a lot of Yolam existential theory, but at the end of the day, it's true. You really have to know who you are before you could start making steps towards what you want. Now, here's the kicker. You don't have to know everything. Like, that's what the whole entire life is for. And you're allowed to change directions as many times as you want. This is something that I love to share with people when they're like, I'm making the wrong decision, or they're all tense about that fear mindset of like, okay, what if I get it wrong? Okay, you get it wrong, then you stop and you turn and you go the other way. Like, I don't believe in rejection anymore. I believe in redirection. And that comes from being really confident in your self-awareness and asking yourself questions and being honest with yourself. The next one I will say is really hard for people that feel like they're perfectionist or are always trying to achieve, always trying to have more personal growth. And it all has to do with your inner dialogue. So challenging negative self-talk and really paying attention to like what pops up, especially right as you wake up or right as you're going to sleep at night. Many people don't do any meditation or mindfulness. If you're part of the Who Am I podcast, you probably do a lot more of that just because I'm always trying to add those into the podcast feed of like, come meditate with me. And here's a free, self-talk type of journaling um, exercise for scripting. But even on the Black Cat energy, like the negative self-talk is really not doing you any good, girly. Like, if you are trying to become attractive and trying to make your life, just this abundance mindset, whenever you are being negative to yourself, you are doing the opposite. You are very much pushing away anything that's good for you because nobody is attracted to the negativity on the long term. Everybody will look at the car wreck as they are driving by it, like they can't help it, but nobody wants to stay and stare at the car wreck. And whenever you are engaged in prolonged, challenging, negative self-talk, you are staring at the car wreck for way too long. So really starting to like question, why is it that you feel so terrible about yourself? Why is it that you are so afraid? And yes, you can introduce positive affirmations, but introduce them in the correct way and really start asking yourself, but why do you think that? Like, that's one of my favorite things to actually do whenever I am in like this negative spiral is I'll be like, but what about if that's not true? Like, what about if that's just like really not the case? Or can you prove that? Like, I get really inquisitive. Logical air comes out and she's just like, I don't know. Where's the evidence? Like, can you give me some strong evidence for this? And that takes care of about, I would say 90% of the negative self-talk, but you might be like, hey, well, Air, what about if it's true? What about if what I'm thinking is actually the case? And then I'd be like, okay, fine. If that's the case, then let's bring in some affirmations, but let's do it the right way and be like, look, I understand that my bank account is looking like this right now, but I know with the steps that I'm taking, it's going to look like this. So that kind of rewiring of the brain is taking that negative self-talk and transferring it into positivity, which makes you more attractive, which makes people want to be around you. People understand, like the people that are very much self-aware, strong, and the individuals you would want in your life anyways, they understand that life isn't perfect and that we go through things. But more importantly, they're like, okay, I see your mindset. I see where you're going. Okay, things are rough right now, but I see where you're going. And they love that. That is so attractive. Okay. 3. I did an entire season on the Who Am I podcast about this. So you all have heard me say this line and this word probably 100 times by now, but set some boundaries. Okay, if you are somebody that really is always asking, like, how do I look? What do you think about this? XYZ, then set some boundaries. And my biggest thing when it comes to boundaries is they're not for other people. Boundaries are for you. I'll say that again. Boundaries are not for other people. Boundaries are for you. The only person that can cross your boundaries is you. There's only one exception, and I won't get into that, but it's pretty clear what that exception is. But nonetheless, say no. Prioritize your needs. Even if you're in a relationship, for my Black cats out there, they're like trying to transfer it from that anxious attachment into that Black cat energy, then okay, it starts with the word no. It starts with telling yourself no. It starts with telling others no. It starts with prioritizing what's going to make you your best self so that you show up better for other people. No is a full sentence. I got that from the Olsen twins, to be honest with you, and I love it because it is definitely a game changer. So establishing healthy boundaries and learning to respect yourself kind of reinforces that self-concept and the self-esteem. And then you get into the positive self-talk and you get into the self-awareness, knowing what you want and what you need. Everything kind of feeds into itself at the end of the day. And that's what I love about self-validation is when you start being like, what is really good for me, or I'm proud of myself, instead of asking people, "Are you proud of me?" or waiting for that compliment, things really start just escalating. And you find that you're getting more compliments. You find that people are more attracted to you. You find that you have better relationships, that you have the partner that you're looking for, and the opportunities just keep opening up. So you'll be able to celebrate, which is kind of my step 4 here is celebrating achievements, okay? Not everything has to be a trophy-worthy type of event. So, short little story here is I was nominated to be one of the finalists for the Science, Healthcare, and Wellness category for the Badass Women of the Year Miami Chamber. And I was so honored to be just a finalist. There was 3 or 4 finalists, and when I got there, I had no idea I was even up for this until about a week before that, and it was a beautiful event. There was, I don't know, close to probably 600 people there, just a lovely event, and I was so happy to be one of those individuals that got to celebrate with everybody. And I'll be honest with you, a woman that does cancer research was the winner in our category. And I was excited. I was genuinely happy for her. And I can admit that the women that were on stage with me, okay, there was 4. The women on stage with me, they weren't so happy. And it made me so sad because at the end of the day, celebrating these achievements, no matter how small or big, or even if you won, or even if you got to show up, is still an achievement. There are hundreds, thousands of people in Miami. For me to be one of 4 in this category for the Miami Chamber was a huge deal. Even if I didn't take home the big trophy, I had my beautiful little plaque, and I was very happy just to be there. Somebody that requires a lot of external validation gets angry when they don't win all the time, and they get in this negative talk and the self-deprecation of like, okay, well, why wasn't I good enough? Or what could I have done? Like, okay, you are enough. I am enough. And being able to even be on the stage with these other women during this time was enough for me. And that is celebrating achievements. Am I going against like competition or winning or being your best self? No. Like, by all means, girlie, take that gold home, go for the prize. But celebrate things, no matter how big or small they are, that are worthy of being celebrated. Okay. Engage in some self care. And I'm not just talking about a good spa day. Any day you want to take me to the spa, I am there with you. I love spas, but a lot of self care really has to do with your mind and your body. Like for me, getting up and working out and going to yoga is one of my ultimate forms of self care. I love just a good, solid flow. But I also love brushing my hair. I love my skincare routine. I love just engaging in practices that make me feel good and kind of soft as I touch my skin. But self-care also is meditation. It's journaling. It's learning to rest. It's really sitting down and having the conversations with yourself that are going to help you get to the next level. And it's not always about, you know, doing your makeup perfectly and going out with your girlies on Mimosa Sunday. Like, there's so many different ways to engage with it. So, I also have a strong preference towards no makeup. 9 times out of 10, if you see me in person, my hair, it will be washed and cleansed, but it may not be, like, fixed. Like, even right now on this show, I don't feel the need to go fix my hair. I don't feel the need to go put on makeup. Right now, this is who I am. Especially if you're watching the visual podcast, you can see, like, I'm very comfortable with how I look because I take a lot of time to take care of the inside of my body as well as the outside, as well as my brain and my spirit. That is what helps fuel my internal validation because I feel good. And when I feel good, it comes out and it shows up in my conversations with people. It shows up on how I treat myself. Ooh. Which goes into just surrounding yourself with supportive people. One of the biggest things that can be a hit no matter how confident you are, no matter how like self-assured you are, your self-concept, if you are around people that are constantly tearing you down and saying that you're worthless and that you're not good enough, like it's going to start playing in your mind. It's going to be that CD. A big thing I tell people is your music really starts to define how you treat yourself and what you believe about yourself. So, surrounding yourself with supportive people is not just who you're working with or who you're dating or who you're married to, but also any type of engagement you have. If you are listening to really, really sad, negative music all the time, then that's going to show up. Honor your emotions, but honor them mindfully, okay? Which goes into my next step of practicing mindfulness. There's a time and a place where I really need to listen to a sad, breakup Taylor Swift type of music song to honor that emotion. But I'm not playing that every single day. I'm not engaging with the negative, like, framework of music every single day. There's times where I want to play rap music or country music, but I really have to be mindful of how much of that palette I allow. So I actually listen to more soundtrack music and more classical music these days than any type of music. And that mindfulness is what helped me connect with my emotions and to really accept myself and honor those emotions without a harsh judgment. Because again, we are practicing or developing that self-validation versus the external validation. I don't need compliments. I don't need likes. I don't need comments. If I get them, oh, thank you. Like, I truly am grateful. But at the end of the day, if no one likes my post or if no one listens to the podcast, I actually keep this more of a journal than anything these days to be like, how much did I grow? How much did I develop over the last 3 years with the Who Am I podcast? Or even with the Black Cat energy. Like, how much did I have to grow in my confidence and my self-esteem and my just attractive magnetic nature to be able to teach this stuff, to be able to share this and help other women? That to me is enough. And you have gifts like that. You have talents and skills that are similar that you can engage in your mindfulness to be like, even if nobody else shows up, I'm showing up for myself. Which is where you get to focus on your personal values. If you don't stand up for anything, if you don't value anything, then you'll fall for everything and you'll get taken advantage of every single day. I am going to share one of the most intimate, hard experiences I had to have in my career over the summer on the upcoming episodes. And it really was challenging because it brought out a lot of dark energy that I thought I didn't even know it was still in there, to be honest with you. But it had been a decade since I was that angry and that frustrated and that ready to go to war on something that was just so like such an injustice and so frustrating. And you can even hear it in my voice right now as I start to kind of tremble in this like anger. And that's why I'm not quite ready to share it yet. But it really did teach me that my personal values of where I have as like fine lines is important. And I'm even a rather peaceful person. Like, I very much enjoy a peaceful, soft life. But I was reminded through this experience that I do have a value for justice. And the warrior air will come out when needed, and she will fight to protect those values. That is validation, especially whenever people expect you to be weak or they expect you to be small-minded. They'll attack and they'll insult and they'll do whatever they can to try to get in your head to make you think that you're the problem or that you are just this horrible individual, when in reality, you're truly just standing up for what you believe in. And those personal values are part of your validation. And no one can take that from you whenever you develop your self-validation. If this group of individuals, and we did win, I will say, like, a little bit of legal had to get involved. And when that happened and we won, I was so proud because it was one of those moments I was like, I did not give up on myself. I did not let these people define who I am. I validated myself. I knew what was right. I knew what needed to happen, and I didn't run away. And I was so proud of those moments because that came through validation. Again, that's an intense story. I will share it very soon. So go ahead and follow both podcasts because I'm posting this on the Who Am I as well as the Black Cat Energy podcast. First time I've ever done that. But you'll figure out your personal values. You'll really figure out who you are when you're challenged, especially when people try to define who you are. And one of the biggest lessons I was able to learn this summer was to be like, I know who I am. Like, you cannot tell me who I am. You can knock me down, you can steal from me, you can lie to me, but you cannot tell me who I am. I know who I am. That took so much of the mindfulness and the self-awareness and the development of self-care. So, two more. I got two more for you guys. Actually, you know what? I got one more. And I'm going to save the next one for the episode where I share what happened because it's going to be more impactful that way. But be patient with yourself. It is not a destination. You are allowed to go one way, pause, stop, and go the other way. You're allowed to change your mind. You're allowed to mess up. You're allowed to date the wrong person and move to the wrong place and get the wrong job and buy the wrong house. You're allowed to do all of those things. Be patient with yourself because that is part of the journey. These are things that are making you who you are, that are harnessing that mystique and that storyline and that confidence and self-esteem to be the black cat that you are. And if you are in such a rush to just figure it all out and to conquer the world, maybe you'll do it. Maybe you'll be at the top of the mountain and it will be in your early 20s or it will be in your 30s or it'll be in your 40s. But then you have between 30 to 50 years that is what? Like, are you going to stay at the top of the mountain or are you going to go down? Is it going to be downhill from there? Like, at the end of the day, just be patient. It's okay to change careers. It's okay to do whatever you need to do at whatever speed. Stop letting people tell you that you're on the clock. Time is man-made. And I like to say that time is even the music of the planets because at the end of the day, it's not linear. There's no right way to do it. There's no wrong way. The clock was designed to make you have the anxiety. But if you can understand that this isn't bad, that it's just a tool like everything else, you'll no longer feel the pressure to be married already or to have the best job or to, I don't know, make that trip to Asia. Like, you'll do it in your own time and you'll be okay to take breaks and rest, which is a huge thing that is part of being that black cat energy, is knowing thyself and knowing when you need to take breaks and to rest. All of these steps are going to help develop that self-validation. It's going to help bring you that calm centeredness that you need to be able to attract your dreams and the goals that you have into your life, better relationships, and most importantly, the best relationship that you can have with yourself. So with all of that, I have no idea how to sign off on this because, again, I'm merging two podcasts into one episode today. So let's see what I can do for my black cats out there and for everyone that has taken this journey with me today. Thank you for healing and growing with me.